Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Tuesday. We are going to be talking about Sciwheel. And today we have Andy Hickner, who's our education and outreach librarian, who's going to be telling you all about it. If you're new to Tech Tuesday, welcome. And welcome to, some other people that I see on here that have been in other sessions. If you do have any questions during the session, please feel free to post it in the chat at any time. Andy will be taking your questions, at various points in the session. And we also are recording today's session, and we'll send you some helpful links as well as the link to this recording by the end of today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Andy. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm Andy Hickner. I'm at the Samuel J. Wood Library here at Weill Cornell. If you're already an experienced user of reference management software like EndNote or Mendeley, the basic workflow that we're going to cover today is going to be pretty familiar to you. So in today's session, we'll start out by defining reference management, reference manager, and synonyms for these terms. I'll show you how to create a Sciwheel account if you don't already have one, how to import references to a library from a database like PubMed, how to use the Word add-in, and how to use Sciwheel to collaborate with colleagues. Here's our game plan for today. It's pretty simple. I'll start out with the short slide presentation covering the basics of reference management software and terminology. And then I'll switch to live demo for the rest of the session. And we'll leave plenty of time to answer any questions that you all have. So what is a reference manager? A reference manager is software you can use to create a personal database and organize citations or references, full text articles, and other documents. You can import references from online databases like PubMed. Reference managers also allow you to add, edit, and format in-text citations and bibliographies in a variety of different styles. Reference managers come in handy anytime you're working on a manuscript for a publication or on a grant. They also enable you to automatically reformat your paper in a different citation style. So for example, when your top choice journal rejects your submission and you need to resubmit to your second choice journal. You might hear reference management referred to as citation management or bibliographic management. All these terms are basically interchangeable. They all mean more or less the same thing. A reference manager is the software that you use to manage your references. All right, any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep an eye on that chat. In the meantime, I'm going to exit out of, exit out of my PowerPoint. Just moving windows around a little bit. So first things first, how do we set up a Sciwheel account? I'm going to start out, and you know what? I'm going to actually change my share to just the window. That'll probably be a little bit easier for you all to see. Okay, great. So to create an account with Sciwheel, I'm just going to start out by Googling Sciwheel Weill Cornell. And I'm going to go to this first hit, which is our record for this resource on the library website. And I'm going to click on this link and then go to create free account now. Now, the first time you do this, when you're creating an account, I recommend doing it when you're on the VPN. You don't have to be on the VPN, but if you don't do it on the VPN, you may be prompted later on to re-authenticate. So I'm just going to click that button. I'll fill out my information and click create free account. Now, I actually already have a Sciwheel account, so I can use this page to sign into my account. And as you can see, I've created my personal Sciwheel account as my personal email, just in case maybe 10 years down the road I end up at a different institution. If, for example, if you're a student or a resident, you might want to use your email address just so you don't have to change everything when you move on to your next employer. So I'll log in. And this takes me to my Sciwheel references page. As you can see, I have so far in my personal library, I have around 300 references. And I have my library organized into different projects. So I have, as you can see, I have private projects and I also have shared projects. Private projects, I mean, this is kind of self-explanatory. Private projects are papers that I'm working on by myself, whereas my shared projects, these are going to be projects that I'm working on with other Sciwheel collaborators. So the first thing I want to do is start importing references that I'm going to be using. There are multiple ways to do this. If you're a Google Chrome user, one thing that I suggest doing right away is installing the Chrome extension for Sciwheel. You can do that by going up here in the upper right to Tools, and then click Chrome extension and then install it. I already have the extension installed. So I'm going to go back. There are a couple of other things linked up here. If you're a Google Docs user, there's also an add-on that you can install. So I am going to next show you how to import references from a database. So for example, PubMed. So I have a big PubMed search right here, and I have 200 results on this page. And up here, where it has sort of the little Sciwheel, the Sciwheel browser extension button and a little number on it. So I can click on that. And if I want to bulk import all 200 references, I can do that just by clicking select all. And then I can add it either to a specific project, or I can just add it to my library and put references in a project later. So I'm not actually going to do that because I don't want, I don't need these 200 references. Next thing I'm going to do is take a minute and install a collection I already have of some references that I'm going to use once we get around to demonstrating the Word add-in. So I'll go back to my Sciwheel browser icon, select all, add the article to a project. And for this, I'm going to put this in my first shared project, that folder. Click add. Now, let me go back to, close this out. Let me go back to my library. And let's see if they showed up. Okay, so I now have those first 4 references in this folder. Another way that you can import a reference is by using a unique identifier. So for example, a DOI or a PMID. So I'll show you an example of this. Scrolling up to my import references button. The identifiers option is here. And I'm going to paste in the ISBN for the book, The Checklist Manifesto. And then click add. And voila, the book has been imported into my library. And if I click on it, I have all the information I need. If there is missing information or an error, I can go to edit and then remedy any fields that are incomplete or incorrect. Another example of where you can use the Chrome extension. Let's say I want to try Google Scholar, and I'll do my same search. And this works really well in Google Scholar as well. Same workflow. And you can even do it with web pages. So let's say this CDC page about the coronavirus. I can go up to my Sciwheel icon and add it in. And same thing, I probably want to go through, make sure that the type is correct. I can change the type of reference if it makes sense to do so. If I wanted to add an organization like Centers for Disease Control. Actually, let's do US Centers for Disease Control. Actually, let's put this in the last name field. And I could add the publication date if I wanted to, and just click save. So those are the basics of getting references into your library. I'm going to pause now. Any questions so far?
I don't see any in the chat, Andy.
Okay. Well, let's move on to.
Oh, sorry, there is one from Marshall. Can you import from PubMed?
Yes, absolutely. So Marshall, let me go back and demo that again. Just going back into, so this is a PubMed search. And if I wanted to import, I can either import selected references, or I could select them here, or I could select all of them. And I would just click add and they would get imported into my library. Oh, okay. So Marshall is contrasting this with how it works in EndNote. Yeah, so that's a great question. The workflow with Sciwheel is a little different from how it is with EndNote. With EndNote, you're probably used to, let's see, it's been a while since I had to do this, but with EndNote, you would go to send to, oops, my mouse is a little sticky, sorry, everybody. Send to citation manager, and then create a file, and then you'd import the file into EndNote that way. You can actually do it that way with Sciwheel as well. But with if you're using Chrome, it's so much easier to just use the browser plugin. If I actually let me show you this. So I'll create the file. So I now have a little file that I can import. I can go into Sciwheel library and import references. And for this, because I have a downloaded file, I'll go to reference files, and then I have to figure out where the heck this thing is. I think it's that one. Click open. And it's added the references. So you can do it the way you do in EndNote. If you're using a different browser than Chrome, that's just another way to do it. Great question. All right, so now let's next take a look at how Sciwheel works with Microsoft Word. One major advantage that Sciwheel has over EndNote is that unlike EndNote, it is integrated into Word 365 online. What this means is that you can have multiple co-authors updating references in a document at the same time. Currently, although that might change in the next year, this isn't something you can do with EndNote. So if you're doing simultaneous collaborative editing, Sciwheel might make sense for your team. So the first thing when you're getting started with Sciwheel in Word, at Weill Cornell at least, is you want to install the Microsoft Word Sciwheel add-in. And we can do that by going to the Insert tab in the ribbon. And then I have to go over here to More Options, and my add-ins are available here. So I'll click that. And then we want to go to, let's see, Admin Managed. And so Sciwheel shows up for me. I already have it installed, but you would just click that, click Add, actually. Click Add, and then I'd close it. And as easy as that. So once you have the Sciwheel add-in installed, it'll show up in your Microsoft Word ribbon up here. So this is important because the official Sciwheel documentation, like if you just Googled how to do this, the documentation on Sciwheel.com has different instructions. We need you to follow our instructions for how to do it at Weill, not theirs. And that's because it's managed through the Weill Cornell App Store. So again, once you're in Word on 365, you go to Insert, find this little More Options, click Add-ins, and then go to Admin Manage to find the add-in and install it. So next up, I have my first paragraph written. And I want to start inserting these references. So I'll click on the Sciwheel tab, and then I'll click on Insert Citations. It'll make me sign in. And then I can search using whatever I happen to be able to remember for that particular reference. So in this case, I have the first author and the date, and I'll just click search. That's the one I want, and I'll click cite. All right. Next, I'm going to add this reference, same process, cite, added that in. We'll do the same thing for our last two references. Okay, so I now have 4 references. If I wanted to, I could rearrange paragraphs, all of that. It wouldn't make a difference. It'll just renumber them in whatever the final order is. So the next thing I want to do, and you want to wait to do this until you're pretty much at the last stage of your manuscript, is format your citations. And you can do that over here. Format, Citations, and Bibliography. Right now, it looks like I am, so when you're doing your editing in Sciwheel, before you format everything, it just defaults to author date. So let's change this to, let's try the Lancet. And we'll scroll down. It asks, do you want it in the current cursor position or the end of the document? I'm just going to leave it selected as end of the document. And what I want you to take a look at here is it says, please note, after you format, any new citations you insert will not be automatically formatted or added to the bibliography. For this reason, we recommend formatting your citations in bulk. So this is a little bit different from how Sciwheel at least used to work, as best I can recall. And also that's a little different from how a reference manager like EndNote behaves. In EndNote, you can add references later on and update your citations, and it won't be an issue. So with the Sciwheel Word add-in, I recommend waiting to do this step until the very last. And you might even save like a backup copy, an unformatted version, just in case you decide to revise down the road and you have to add in another reference. So for now, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm ready to pull the trigger. I'll click Update Citations and Bibliography. And this is where the magic really happens. So you can see I have, I now have the whole manuscript formatted in Lancet style. It's changed it to superscripts. A superscript numbered style, and then my bibliography is all in order with all the information for each reference complete and nicely formatted the way that the journal wants it. Now, if you are looking for a style that is not in this list, I could just go to more styles. And we could search for, let's say, Annals of Internal Medicine. You can just select more styles and then search for whatever journal you need to use the style for. Okay. So when you're ready to submit, oh, we have a question. So I'm gonna just take a look at this chat. Okay, is Sciwheel recommended over Mendeley at Cornell? Is there a way to transfer references from Mendeley to Sciwheel? I'll take the second half of the question first. Yes, it is possible to transfer references from Mendeley to Sciwheel, and I can, what I will probably do is look up the instructions for that and give it to Vanessa so she can send it out as part of the helpful links at after this session. So I'm not wasting all of your time Googling for the link. The short answer is yes, it is possible, and it's not too hard to move references from one reference manager to another. And is Sciwheel recommended over Mendeley at Cornell? You know, it's I would say I personally have not used Mendeley a whole lot, so I'm not in a great position to speak to the pros and cons. If you're happy with Mendeley, I'd say keep using it. The nice thing about Sciwheel is that the library does license it for you, and I personally feel like it's a pretty user-friendly product. So that's why I've started using it. And I use different reference managers for different things. Like when I'm working on a systematic review and I'm exporting from databases and doing a lot of deduplication, I typically use EndNote for that. And that's just because the workflow that I've developed for myself over the years, that's just how I'm used to doing it. But if I'm just starting to write a journal article, oftentimes I'll start the project in Sciwheel. Great question, though. You can also feel free to contact us at the library with any questions about Mendeley while Sciwheel is sort of the official product that we subscribe to. We can do our best to try and troubleshoot with other reference managers as well. Can you unformat to return to the editing mode as can be done with EndNote? Okay, so I think I understand what you're talking about. Let's see. With the, let's see, this is a little easier for me to do in the desktop version. So I'm going to change my screen share just so I can demo this. Okay. Vanessa, can you all see my full desktop now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to open this up in the desktop app. So in the desktop app, I will go to Sciwheel tab. Let me see. Is there a way to save this as? You know, I don't. This was easier to do in the other, in the old Sciwheel add-on in Word. This is going to be one of those things that I'm going to need to go back and double check the workflow. Convert the Word doc to plain text. So I'll get back to you and I'll send that link along to Vanessa as well. Great question. All right. Let's talk a little bit about collaboration. If you're working on a Word document with collaborators, it's important that all collaborators have the same references in their library. If a collaborator has inserted a reference or a citation for a reference that you don't have, it can cause formatting issues. So to avoid that, Sciwheel recommends using a shared project in Sciwheel that all collaborators are part of. So let me go back into Sciwheel and I can show you exactly how we do that. And so I have this shared project right here, and I have the little options menu right here. And I would go to add members, and then I could add whichever colleagues I wanted as a collaborator and invite them. And then they would be able to add references to the library as well, or to that shared project, I should say. So when you're working with collaborators like that, you only want to insert citations from references that are in the same project. It's best to be working. So when you're doing this, I'll continue here and close out of my desktop version of Word. So when you're doing any kind of collaborative editing, you want to make sure that everybody is editing out of the cloud in Word 365, because it won't work if you're all trying to do it from your own local copies. If your co-authors aren't Sciwheel users, another method that's always safe is just to assign one person to handle the Sciwheel references. Your co-authors can add comments in the text, kind of like what I've done here, just to indicate where they want you to insert the reference. All right, so a couple more things I want to highlight before we open it up for more questions. The first is we have a Sciwheel guide for WoW users. And I'll pop this in the chat. This will also be in the email that Vanessa sends out. So this just has basic stuff to get you started with the product. There's also the Sciwheel help guide. Sciwheel has pretty good video training, and their how-to is organized just by topics. So pretty much everything you need to find, you'll just navigate through here. And when you're using the Word add-in, well, that information is in here as well. And it's searchable. Last but not least, you can always email the library. So going to the library homepage. Over here, submit a reference question. And just fill out the form, and we'll try to get back to you the same business day or within one business day. We're also available for consultations or custom training. So like if you're a DA and you want to get some of your junior faculty trained in this, we're happy to come in and do a little group training. We can do it both virtually and in person, whatever your needs are. And then the last thing that I want to share is our feedback form, which is right here. So I'll send this in the chat as well. I just ask that everybody takes a minute to fill out the feedback form about the session, because this will help us improve future library-led Tech Tuesdays and other classes. It's a really short form, should only take you about 30 seconds, and it'll really help us. All right, so we have like 15 minutes or so. Any other questions? All right, well, if If there are no further questions, is there anything else that anybody would like me to show again? Anything we covered today that I can review for you? Oh, okay. I see we have a chat. What would be the main reasons to change from EndNote, in my opinion? Well, as I said earlier, you don't necessarily even have to change completely from one reference manager to another. I use both programs, and it just depends on the project and the needs of my team. So if I think if you're already an EndNote user and you're comfortable with the process, and most of your collaborators are using EndNote, there's really no reason to switch. One advantage Sciwheel does have for Weill Cornell users is that you can use it on a non-tagged device, whereas EndNote can only be installed on a tagged device. And not everybody in our community, we understand, has tagged devices. So this is a good option for those folks. Or if you do happen to have a tagged device, but you're doing a lot of work on a non-tagged device. So that's a consideration. We also tend to recommend Sciwheel for people who are new to reference management. Like if you're not already using Mendeley or EndNote or Zotero, then Sciwheel is a pretty user-friendly way to get started. But like I said, if you're already using a specific program and you're happy with it, you don't necessarily have to switch. All right, any others? Going once, going twice? Oh, okay. I often have formatting issues in bibliographies with web pages and certain publications. Is Sciwheel better for these? Yes. Okay, so this is, yeah, I have the same problem, actually. I don't know that Sciwheel is necessarily better for it. If you're, one problem that you probably had when you're importing a website, and actually I think we saw this in the CDC reference, where it's not complete. You still have to go in and edit, and there's really no way around that. You kind of have to take a look and make sure that it has the necessary data. And my experience has been that it doesn't matter really if you're using, I wouldn't say Sciwheel is any better at that than other reference managers. It does a great job typically with journal articles. With web pages, not so great. And you can also, I should also mention, when you're creating a reference, you can also create a reference from scratch. Now, obviously, this is a little more time consuming, but there may be times when the type of, when you can't actually find a source, and it may just make more sense to create it from scratch. All right, that seems to be all the questions. Vanessa, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Andy. So for anybody who may have signed in late, this session is being recorded and I will be sending it out at the end of the day, along with some links that Andy provided me earlier. And I believe there are a couple more that you wanted to add to that list, Andy. So I'll make sure I get everything together and email everything out to you guys later today. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining us today to learn about Sciwheel, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.